differently, right? That must be sort of satisfying in a way.
Oh, for sure, because say Megan Tanty, who plays Sophie, she has such a straight arrow character, you know, and so to be Alice against her, I feel it's Alice is like even wackier and like tries to get under her skin, you know, and then playing it against Mary, who's Poison Ivy, who's like a larger than life character, then all of a sudden Alice is less of the crazy one and sort of in this managerial position. So it really gives me an opportunity to explore different sides of the same character.
I think there's been a sea change in recent years, and it's long overdue, to have strong female characters really leading shows like this, in the superhero realm particularly. And when we look at Birds of Prey and your history with a lot of other shows, what is it like now to be surrounded by so many strong females and be kind of thriving in this environment now?
Who here has seen Birds of Prey?
Yeah!
Oh my gosh, are you serious? That's amazing.
Cult classic.
I know, and I was thinking, Birds of Prey now, it was 20 years ago, because I was 16 when I did it, and I'm 37. No, 36. Oh my gosh. Do you get to that point where you forget how old you are?
I don't think that math adds up.
Yeah. I remember once my mom, we celebrated her birthday, and for a whole year, we celebrated that she was a year older than she actually was, and then on her next birthday, she was like, oh, wait a second, and she was kind of doing the math. That's me now.
Classic.
I'm getting old. What was the question? I'm so old I didn't even remember.
Just, you know, being surrounded by so many powerful females and like, talk to me about the empowerment of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, and I feel like Ashley and Dina would agree with this opinion, Birds of Prey was just maybe 7 to 10 years too early. And had Birds of Prey been on the air now, or especially when the Arrowverse started, when Arrow came out, because Smallville was on the air. It was a very different vibe in a way, even just visually. Birds of Prey, Brian Robbins, who had produced both of them, he wanted to make Birds of Prey a lot darker. And it just, I don't know, it didn't hit for whatever reason. But we all kind of, whenever we talk, just say like, oh, if it had been on 10 years later, it would be on for 6 years, because it's so in the wheelhouse of what's being done today, which is wonderful. Now you have an opportunity to see all sorts of different strong female leads and whatnot, but at the time it was having 3 female superheroes, it was, they didn't really do it, so.
Yeah, it was sort of unheard of, unfortunately, but it will have that legacy, at least, like you say, and then you've got the episodes and the brief time it ran, at least, to be proud of, and, you know, maybe in hindsight, like years later, it will be looked at through a different lens and be regarded as, like, somewhat of a cult classic, which I think it's already sort of garnering that following.
Yeah.
Look at how many people have seen it.
I know. Okay, but wait a second, I want to ask you guys a question. How many of you saw it when it first came out, and how many of you discovered it later? Oh, okay. So most people watched it when it first came out.
Yeah. Playing a villain is fun. Like, do you just relish doing that? That must be tremendous as a performer to be able to look at a script, look at a character, and say, oh, I'm gonna love playing this baddie.
Yeah, people actually ask me a lot, because obviously Birds of Prey and Batwoman are both DC, both in the Warner Brothers family, and they'll say, oh, is it a really similar experience? And for those reasons, it is similar. The head of Warner Brothers, who now no longer is the head, but he was when Batwoman first started, he was also the head of Warner Brothers when I did Birds of Prey, and so it very much felt like this homecoming for me. But they were such different characters, and as much as I have love for Dinah Lance, it was way more fun to play Alice, because it's just so much more fun to play a bad character. You know, you don't have to worry about the audience liking you. In fact, I was quite positive everyone would hate Alice. I actually thought I was gonna get fired on the pilot. I spent the whole pilot episode being like, they're gonna fire me, I'm definitely gonna be fired. Because obviously there's a note that you have to hit, like when you're playing someone who's sort of clinically insane. You don't want to go like too far, or you don't want to not do enough. But it's just, you get all sort of the different colors to play with, and she can be all over the place, and you can make her quite sympathetic, but you can also make her, you know, Alice does these horrible things, which are quite a lot of fun to do.
But do you think you were overdoing it? Like, what was your reluctance, or why did you think that they were going to act like that? Yeah, like in the pilot.
I wasn't sure. I
Like
wasn't
scenery
sure.
chewing.
Well, yeah, because when I auditioned for it, there were obviously lots of other women auditioning, and how it works usually is before you go into a test. So you test with the studio and you test with the network, and there were, I believe, 3 or 4 other women testing for Alice. They all looked very different than me, so I thought, well, maybe, like, I'd seen the comic and I thought, well, I think I kind of look like Alice. But then I thought, well, maybe they want to go in a different direction. And then you sit out in this waiting room, and everyone, my mom used to call it the snake pit, because you're all like there competing, and everyone's actually very nice. But I could hear in the other room them doing their auditions, and it was like nothing like I was doing it. And so I think I was actually kind of surprised that I got the part. And then when I got the part and I was doing it on set, they didn't say anything to me. Like, we'd finish a take, and I wouldn't even get like a thumbs up. They'd just finish it and move on. And I started to be like, oh no, like maybe they're just like, we gotta finish this pilot, like get this girl out of here, or something like that. Yeah. So it was quite a surprise to me when the show got picked up and they kept me. And then everyone was like, oh, it was great, you did a great job. But then there's also the other hurdle of making sure that an audience likes a character that you do, and that they relate to that character and engage with that character, and I just wasn't sure. So it was such a nice thing when people started not only liking Alice but actually genuinely rooting for her. You know, I was surprised about that.
Yeah, these days we love to root for the villain. Let's open it up to some questions for Rachel. So if you could just line up in an orderly fashion at one of the 2 mics there. Let's keep our masks on, and try to keep it to 1 question if you can. We do make some exceptions, but that's usually the protocol. Before we get to questions, I just want to ask you one more thing. In the last couple of years, there's been a lot of focus on mental health, and I think it can be cathartic sometimes as an actor or actress to play villains or heroes that struggle with their mental health. So what is that like for you, and what kind of message do you, I mean, yeah, you're playing this kind of like over-the-top baddie, but she's got some serious issues internally. So what is that like to bring that to audiences, and how does that sort of help motivate you play the character?
Well, I feel very passionate about mental health, and also removing the stigma of mental health. I have bipolar in my family, depression. I've struggled from anxiety. I mean, I do struggle from anxiety. That's a lifelong thing. You don't get rid of it. I think it's something that we should talk about more openly. And so I like the fact that Alice starts a conversation about that. I think that's another reason that I really tried to make her empathetic rather than just this archetype of this crazy person, you know. But it was also interesting to explore, like, what makes someone crazy, what makes someone become, you know, obviously there's mental illness, and then there's being a sociopathic serial killer, which Alice is, but Alice wasn't born that way. What made her into that person?
Trauma.
Exactly, and having years and years of neglect, and not having support, and not having anyone to help her. So yeah, the writers and I actually this season talked a lot about sort of dealing more with the mental health aspect of Alice, and especially towards the end of the season, which has not yet aired, we do address that, which I was very happy about.
That's great. And audiences demand more from shows and characters and movies when it comes to villains. And, you know, 40 years ago it would have been like the crazy bad person or the villain, but now it's like people are asking more questions and they want more depth with their characters to learn about the roots. Like you say, where did this trauma come from? Why are they like this? What made them like that? And I think that opens up incredible opportunities for storytelling and to develop characters.
That's a great question, Thor. That's one of the best questions I've ever been asked on a panel. I really loved that question.
All right, more great questions. We'll start over here. Go ahead for Rachel.
Hi, I was just wondering, since you mentioned Birds of Prey earlier, and Ashley and Dina cameo in Crisis on Infinite Earths, were you upset that you didn't at least put in a token appearance?
Wait, can you just repeat the end of the question?
Oh, were you upset that you didn't make a token appearance in Crisis on Infinite Earths?
Well, in my mind, I did make a little appearance because there was a photo of Beth. I would have loved to be in Crisis because it was such an epic crossover. However, filming the crossovers is it's mental. It's next level because everyone's filming their shows, but then they're also jumping to other shows. And so I got a week off, and I will say there was a part of me that was grateful for it because the first season especially, which is when Crisis happened for us, was so intense in terms of the hours and whatnot. But it was also really nice for me because even though I wasn't in it, Ashley was in Vancouver and I got to see her and we went out and had dinner together. And it was really crazy because she had her hair like the Huntress again, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, I feel like I'm in a time warp. It really felt like I was 16 years old again because Ashley had been so kind to me. I was such a fish out of water when I filmed Birds of Prey. It was kind of my first big job. I was Dinah. I had no idea. I was this country bumpkin in the city, and Ashley really took care of me, and so it was just really lovely to spend time with her again.
Thank you.
Great question. Okay, over here, go ahead.
Hi. I was just wondering, when you were playing Beth and Alice at the same time, the same season, how was that?
Oh my gosh, I was so scared. I'd never done that before. I'd never played two characters in the same scene. And I think I was quite worried that no one would believe that they were two different human beings. They're the same person, but in different worlds. And definitely I didn't think people would believe it when I was in the scene with myself. But it was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had filming. The way that we did it was we filmed the whole scene with me as Alice, and everyone else was in the scene and filmed it, and we had a tennis ball on a stand as Beth. And that was good because Alice was the more active character in that scene, so I got to kind of chart out the way Alice walked and what she did. And then everyone left, and we filmed the scene only with me as Beth. And so I had to remember where everyone was standing, where Alice was standing when I was talking to Alice, because she walks around Beth. And then it was so crazy because they overlay them, and I could see it in real time after we filmed it, and I was like, oh my gosh. It's just one of those moments that was really cool. But also it's quite bizarre learning lines, speaking to yourself and things like that. So I wouldn't want to do it every day. I have so much respect for people like, Tatiana in Orphan Black and whatnot, who play multiple characters. It's a lot of work, but I would definitely like to do it again.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's incredible how the digital effects have come so far. It's not like Haley Mills and The Parent Trap anymore, where it's they got to find some way of splitting the screen. So that's really cool that you were able to learn about the process as well, and then be challenged as an actor as well.
Oh yeah, no, it was really fun, and I think believable. I think it pulled it off. The wigs helped me.
Okay, go ahead over here for Rachel.
Hi, welcome. And just wondering, how much fun do you have playing with Alice's butterfly knife? Because it looks like you're so good at it. I would lose fingers if I actually tried to do that. But how much fun do you actually have playing with her knife?
It's a lot of fun. It wasn't at the beginning. I think at the beginning they were unsure if I'd be able to do it. So what they were going to do in that scene with Kate, when she's tied up on the rope and Alice swats her with the paddle, and I'm sitting in my chair with weird babies attached to it, and I'm doing the knife. They were just going to cut to a stunt double doing it with their hand, but I felt like it was such an important part of Alice, and I really wanted it to just be second nature. So I spent probably 48 hours straight just doing it. I would be on, Skype calls or FaceTime calls, and my arms would be feeling, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just practicing with butterfly knives. But it actually hurts in the beginning because you hit your knuckles So that wasn't great. But then I kind of got the first hand. I started with my right hand, and then actually my left hand came quite easily because I kind of learned the movement of it. And yeah, now it's like my cool little party trick. I will say though, Wallace Day, who played Kate in the second season, she shows up on set and she just like picks it up and like does it. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm sorry. That took me 48 hours to learn of like non-stop. Like I was like sleeping doing butterfly knives, you know? She just picks it up and was like, oh, what's this? Like, anyway, so there you go.
Yes, go ahead over here.
Hello, I believe after Birds of Prey you took some time off acting to pursue other interests. Do you feel that time away made you a better performer when you came back?
Wow, these are great questions.
Very
That's a
thoughtful.
wonderful question. I took time off because I really wanted to go to university. You guys are Canadian, so you'll know this. I went to Queen's University. I'd always wanted to go there. I'd worked so much of high school that it's not that I didn't feel, because I was able to stay in my high school and I played hockey and I did stuff like that, but I was away so much, and so I didn't want to do that for university. I really wanted to have that experience at an age-appropriate time, living in a dorm, and you know, that's the kind of thing that you can't do later on in the same way. So I went to school. Everyone told me it was a massive mistake, that I would probably never work again. And at the time, I actually didn't really care. I was like, yeah, whatever, because I'd kind of done acting I'd fallen into it. It was like this fun other thing that I did. And then when I graduated, I traveled a little bit, and I think I was driving my mom crazy at home, working at Abercrombie and Fitch. And and my mom's like, why don't you just go back to LA? And I was like, that's a great idea. So I got in my car at $700. I don't know what I was thinking. And I landed in LA, and I just thought everyone would remember me. Like all the casting directors, and everyone was like, who are you? I think one casting director asked me if I'd been in rehab. I was like, no. Yeah. But I think, yeah, of course, any life experience makes you a better actor. But I think what it really did for me, getting an education, and I say this especially to women who are in this industry, it gave me the confidence to stand up for myself. It gave me the words to articulate myself and what I needed. It taught me how to think differently and outside of the box. And I feel that formal education isn't for everyone, but it's so discouraged in this business. And I think that that's a mistake because, I also always felt that, well, if acting doesn't work out, I have a degree, I can fall back on that. I can go and, maybe do a master's or get a job as a teacher or something like that. So it was very good for acting, but it was also, I think, good just for me. But that was a great question, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Go ahead over here.
Hi, so I think one of the...
Sorry, can you just get a little closer to the mic there? And just, yeah, if you can, speak up a little.
Yeah, so
Perfect.
I think one of the funniest scenes on Batwoman this season was when Alice and Sophie were together on the couch watching horror movies. And I heard that, you're often able to improvise a lot on set. So I was wondering, from that scene, did you improvise anything?
Oh, yeah. So Megan is probably my best friend on the show. I love her. We have this joke that we just have like a running conversation all the time. But I very rarely get to work with her. And I love when I do, not only because our characters, like what I was saying before, she's such a straight arrow and Alice is like so off the wall and likes to kind of like poke the bear, But also just because she's one of my best buds and it's so fun to hang out with her. So that day, I thought, what can I do that's gonna like really weird Megan out? And because it's always my goal to make her, and actually Jadicia, I love trying to make Jadicia laugh as well and like break. So when I had my feet up on her, that was not part of the script. And I was really just trying to gross her out with it. And I did one take where I like put my toes on her face and she was like, what the actual fuck? And I was like, way too far. So yes, they do let me improvise a lot. I think in the second season, I'm in her apartment and I'm kind of going through all her stuff and I lick this pepper in her fridge. That was also just to make the crew laugh. I didn't think that they'd put that in the show. So stuff like that. It's really fun. Basically I just trying to make people on set laugh and then they end up putting it in the show. So.
Yeah, it's long hours and people are working really hard, so it's nice to bring some levity to it sometimes, right?
You know, our crew works so hard. They're so wonderful.
All right, let's go ahead over here for Rachel.
First off, you're wonderful. You really made the show for me. Alice is definitely a favorite character. I deal with anxiety too. Just standing up here is kind of...
Yeah, I know. It's anxiety ridden, I get it.
My question is, what was it like working with two different Batwomen?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of worked with 3 different Batwomen because we've had Ruby, Jalicia, and Wallace. I think it was actually kind of a neat experience. I mean, we're not the first show to do that. There's many shows. I mean, Arrow has different Black Canaries. I liked it insofar as they each brought something so different to their roles. So, as I was saying before, it's always fun to play with different actors because of the way you play off of them. I was really happy that when Jalicia came in, they organically connected our characters because obviously before we hadn't really known one another, and I spent the entire first season only caring about Kate Kane, and so I felt that they really, in a nice way, built that relationship, and now I love that relationship between those 2 characters. And I was also happy that they brought in Wallace because I got to sort of, in some ways, finish that relationship a little, although I don't think that relationship can ever be finished because they're so intertwined. But yeah, I didn't expect that to happen, but it actually has been quite lovely to work with everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And good job getting up there. Props to you. Yeah, let's give her a round of applause. That's not easy.
It's a safe space here at Fan Expo.
Yeah.
Go ahead over here for Rachel.
So when you're on set, what do you look for in a makeup artist?
Well, just someone who doesn't make me look hideous is very nice. I'm really lucky on Batwoman. I've had the same makeup artist since day one. And she's very talented and does such a lovely job, especially because it's not easy to make people look great at 4 a.m. when you're like out in the woods and you're so tired and soaking wet. But yeah, I think I'm kind of easygoing about makeup artists. They're artists in their own right. And I think some people are really particular about their makeup and how they like to look. I sort of like to create a character with them, and I wouldn't say I'm particularly great at makeup, so, so I'm like, you do you, whatever.
I'm in your hands.
Yeah, I think I've only once had someone do my makeup, and I remember going into the bathroom and being like, oh no. But, you know, whatever.
That helps transform the character too, right? When you're just completely, you become a different person, physically, and the image, you know?
For sure. I mean, that time I was supposed to just look like a normal person, and I looked like a Yeti, but yeah, most of the time I've lucked out. I've had really wonderful people do my makeup.
All right, we'll take one over here on this side for Rachel. Thank you so much for the question.
Hi again. Between playing Elizabeth I and Alice, you've had like quite a pretty outfits. Between the dresses that you wore as Elizabeth I and Alice, which would you prefer?
Oh, that's actually really tough. Elizabeth's costumes were so beautiful, and they were transformative. I feel like when I I mean, Alice's are as well, but when I put on Elizabeth's costumes, I mean, you just become a different person because there are these huge dresses with trains and beautiful embellishments, and I didn't love the corsets. Adelaide, that dirty little liar, told me that they'd get better, and they just didn't. But you kind of learn ways to work around it, like never take your corset off at lunch. You eat lunch with your corset on, because otherwise you're gonna regret it. I remember one day on set, I took it off and had lunch, and I had a lot of lunch because they had this mac and cheese that I really liked, and then I put the corset back on and it was so tight. It was so tight that between takes I had to actually lie on the floor just to breathe. I was like, never again. It wasn't good. But Alice's costumes take actually in some ways just as much work because all of those jackets are handmade for me. And what I love about Alice is there's a real archetype for Alice, even though she's constantly wearing different incarnations. She's always wearing a jacket, she's always wearing gloves, she has her boots, she has her tights, she usually has a vest that she's wearing under. So when you see those things, you think of Alice, and I think that that's just genius. Also, our costume designer has played with colors. So in the beginning, she was very blues, and then she kind of went into like baby yellows, and now she's taking her into reds, I think to make her into Red Alice, but you didn't hear that here. Oh, spoilers!
Thank you.
All right, go ahead over here for Rachel.
Hi. My question is, so Alice is very much a character that you feel like she could kill you, like whenever she wanted, basically. Did you channel your inner Tamsin to kind of get that Alice side?
Has anyone here seen Lost Girl? Okay. So for those of you who haven't, I played a character, Tamsin, who was beloved to me on the show Lost Girl. If you were to go back and watch that show, you would see that I stole a lot of stuff from Tamsin. And in fact, it was Tamsin became so dear to me that when I went and played Queen Elizabeth, the first couple weeks that I played her, they'd have to many times come over to me and say, so Rachel, you actually can't roll your eyes like that, or, because I would just do these things that are actually very Alice. And so when I came back into playing Alice, I realized how many things I was taking from Tamsin. So she kind of lives on in that character a little bit. But Alice is I joke that she's like Tamsin on crack. You know, she's like Tamsin times 10. So yes, very astute. That's exactly what I did.
Did you have one more?
I mean, why not? Like, you married a Frenchman. As a French person, how's your French?
Now, there's a loaded question.
Oui, je prends maintenant parce que mon mari est français. Et je ne sais pas si mon français est d'accord.
Non, il est très bien.
Ah, merci.
Très bien, super accent.
Oh, merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much. If anyone has any questions for Rachel, you can come up and ask away at the mic there. We've got time for a few more. And
I feel like everyone thinks, oh, you're on a show in the Batman universe, so of course you're going to say your favorite show was something Batman related growing up, but mine was genuinely Adam West Batman growing up. And actually, that's one of the reasons I love Comic-Con so much, because I got to meet Adam West before he passed out of Comic-Con.
Wow.
And I blacked out. Like, we were in the green room, and there are all these round tables, and people were eating lunch, and I was with my agent, and she was like, don't look now, but Adam West is to your right. And I remember, I froze, and then I looked over, and he was just sitting there eating, so casually, and Holly says to me, well, I know his agent, I can introduce you. And I was like, no, don't even look over there. I was just so nervous. So then finally, a couple minutes passed, and I'm like, Rachel, get it together. You're an adult. You need to meet Adam West. And so I said to Holly, okay, introduce me. And so she goes over, and then she says, come. And honestly, I have to this day have zero recollection of what I said to him. Like, I was so starstruck to be in his presence. And afterwards I said to Holly, I was like, was I cool? Like, was I acting cool? And I remember Holly's face and she was like, yeah. I totally wasn't cool. But as he left, he turned around and looked at me and like winked, and I died.
Wow.
I know. So I was like, that's it. I can die now. That's all I need. But in terms of your question, if I based Alice on anything, yes, Breaking Bad. Because Walter in that show is constantly doing these like horrific things, and yet you root for him. You like want him. You're like, yeah, kill that guy. You know what I mean? And it's so crazy. And I just thought that it was, Bryan Cranston was so brilliant in how he executed that character. And so it's quite bizarre that that's part of who I based Alice on.
That's fascinating. I love that. The anti-hero.
Exactly.
Okay, go ahead over here.
Oh, okay. I forgot my question. So you gotta go first.
Okay.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
You had a really memorable guest starring appearance on The Imposters. How did you enjoy filming that show?
I loved Imposters. And I feel like Imposters is actually one of those shows that's gotten a second life on Netflix, and so many people now will say, oh, I was watching this show and then you appeared on it. And that's really cool. They are such a lovely group of people. Marianne, who played my sister on the show, or I guess I played her sister, we are still friends to this day. And Inbar is also someone that I've kept in touch with. I visited Rob in London. They just like embraced me into that cast and acted like I'd been there the whole time, which is really nice and rare. And I also got to go film in Mexico City, which was incredible.
Wow,
So,
cool.
I know, one of the perks of the job.
Okay, go ahead. Did it come back to you?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Also, I'm from Mexico City, so yay.
Oh my gosh,
Perfect.
it's amazing. You have an amazing home city.
Thank you. Now that Mary is not longer Poison Ivy and you play kind of like a sisterly role while she was Poison Ivy, what do you think is going to happen with their relationship going forward?
I think that they will. I mean, this is obviously just my thoughts. This isn't a spoiler because I don't know. We're not filming it right now, but I do think that they will always have a much deeper love for one another, because Alice, as much as some of it was a bit to get what she wanted, she really was the only person who kind of saw Mary in that moment, and I do think really cared about what happened to her in the end. So I think Mary sees that and appreciates it. Also in episodes that you have yet to see, Mary really does that back for Alice, and is quite instrumental in Alice getting the help she needs.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got time for a few more. Go ahead for Rachel.
Hi, I was wondering about your method for when you're using your voice, because when you're Elizabeth, you have the British accent, and when you're Alice, you kind of have a bit of something going on there. So I was wondering if you do that all day, or do you just like switch back to your normal voice between takes?
It's actually quite easy to change from one to another. But when I started with Rain, they actually let me see my audition back, and I don't know how they gave me the part because my accent was insane. Like, it was not a British accent. It was like something. I don't know what it was. So I had to really work on that. I love accents. I just think they're so much fun, and as an actor, your voice is such a tool at your disposal. But it was quite intimidating because most everyone on Rain was English, and so I thought, not only am I embarrassing myself in front of actual English people, but now I'm going to go on national television and embarrass myself in front of millions of people. I remember my first scene was also with Megan Follows, who's like a Canadian legend, and I was so nervous and in a corset, so I couldn't even breathe, which was fine because I wasn't breathing anyway. I was so nervous. But I remember Megan saying to me, don't worry, in about 6 episodes, it'll get to the point where you don't even know, like, you don't even think about it. You'll just kind of switch into it. And I thought, oh, that'll never happen for me. And then it did. And so, no, I kind of go back to my normal voice, and then for the scene, I'll switch into whatever voice I'm doing. But I will say my English accent comes in handy when I'm making dinner reservations, because I feel like they always give you a table if you have a British accent.
You sound like royalty.
I know. I'm super posh.
That's great. Okay, we have time for one more question. You get the final word.
Okay, actually, I don't have a question for you. I just want to give you a token of appreciation for bringing us the character Alice. It's one of me and my daughter's favorite character.
Oh, a little token of appreciation.
Is that for me?
Wow, bring that up. That's beautiful.
Oh my gosh, did you just do this now? Oh my gosh, look at this. You just like legit
So
drew
cool.
this now.
Yeah.
So much. Yes, you can. Absolutely. All right, we're gonna get a little.
That's a nice way to end things. Thank you so much.
Guys, thank you for coming out. I really appreciate it. Bye.
Well, Rachel, we anticipate the end of season 3. There's lots to come with the show and with your professional career, and we look forward to seeing what's next for you and your character, and also where you go from here outside of Batwoman. So thank you for joining us and for your candor, and we hope to see you again this weekend.
Thank you very much. Hey, can I ask you a question? Your
Yeah.
name is Thor.
Yes, I get that a lot, and I say it's a lot to live up to. That's my
Yes.
real name.
Now, are your parents Scandinavian?
No, my dad...
Or
my-
just ambitious?
My parents were big fans of Thor Heyerdahl, who was an explorer in the 40s and 50s. He would kind of recreate these ancient Polynesian voyages, and he was Norwegian himself. But yeah, since Adventures in Babysitting and then Marvel, like Thor became part of like pop culture. But back in 1980, it wasn't as big a thing.
Well, unless you lived in Norway.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. All right, let's give it up for Rachel. Thank you so much. Woo! One more time, let's hear ya! Woo! Thanks again, everyone. We'll see you soon.